Good afternoon and welcome to today's special meeting of the Scrutiny Commission. As usual, this meeting is being broadcast live to the public. For those not able to watch live, the webcast will be recorded and made available for viewing on the County Council website after the meeting. We've received apologies from Mr. O'Shea and Mr. Smith is attending as their substitute. Mr. Robinson has also submitted his apologies and Mr. Morris is attending as his substitute. We've also received apologies from Mr. Balls, and I'd like to welcome the leader and the lead member for Adults and Communities to the meeting as well today. So item 1, I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of June on pages 3 to 8 are taken as read, confirmed and signed. All agreed? Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest and respects on items on the agenda. Does anyone have any declarations? No? Okay. Item 3, declarations of the party whip in accordance with the Overview and Scrutiny Procedure Rule 16. Do we have any declarations of the party whip? Okay. So on to item 4, the protocol for flying flags at County Hall, call-in of the Cabinet decision, and this is on pages 9 to 26. So as members are aware, a call-in was submitted on Monday the 16th of June 2025 in relation to the Cabinet decision taken on the 12th of June 2025 regarding the protocol for flying flags at County Hall. The call-in was submitted by myself, Mr. Mullaney, Mr. Mear and Mrs. Bottomley, and a copy of the call-in notice is attached to the agenda. Before we begin, I will remind members that the purpose of this meeting and the focus of the discussion to be had today is for us to consider whether the reasons set out in the call-in notice are sufficient to ask for the decision to be reconsidered. A copy of the process that will be followed today has been circulated to all members and copies have also been available today. So we will now move to item 1. So I will ask the Head of Law to present the guidance note provided by her, the Council's Statutory Scrutiny Officer, on the implications of the call-in. So I'll hand over to Fiona now.
Thank you. So as the Council has not had a call-in request for many years, I thought it would be helpful to start the meeting by setting out the legal and constitutional basis for call-in to inform your discussion today. The procedure for a call-in of an executive key decision is set out in Rule 14 of the Overview and Scrutiny Procedure Rules, which are set out at Part 4E of the Council's Constitution. Councils set their own definition of what a key decision is within the parameters set by national legislation, and each council also has its own rules set out in its constitution for how call-in operates. The decision which has been called in was made by Cabinet on the 12th of June 2025 on a protocol for flying flags at County Hall, which revoked the previous protocol, which had been agreed by the political group leaders in the last council term, and replaced it with a new protocol. A request for call-in was made in writing, which was received on the 16th of June by the requisite 4 members of the Council, 2 of whom are members of the Scrutiny Commission, and determined by the Council's Chief Executive to be validly made. This meeting has been arranged within the 10 working day timescale which is set out in the procedure. Any call-in must include a cogent explanation of the reasons for the call-in, and these are set out in the notice of call-in, which forms part of the agenda. It is for the Commission today to consider these reasons and decide if they are sufficient to form the basis for a request for the decision to be reconsidered. The phrase call-in is not actually used in legislation, but it is a mechanism created by the Local Government Act 2000 to enable rigour, scrutiny and accountability to the Cabinet's decision-making process by giving Overview and Scrutiny Committees the power to review or scrutinise decisions of the Cabinet which have been made but not yet implemented. The Centre for Governance and Scrutiny, the national body which offers guidance on all things scrutiny related, describes call-in as a mechanism for councillors to intervene when they feel that a decision being made by the executive needs to be revisited or possibly changed. It is important to note that a call-in cannot overturn or reverse a decision, but can result in a recommendation that a decision be reconsidered or withdrawn. It is best regarded as an urgent and serious request from councillors to the executive decision maker that they should think again. So today the Scrutiny Commission has 3 options on how to proceed. It can decide not to take any further action, so the matter will not be referred back to the Cabinet for reconsideration. This means the Cabinet's decision will take effect today. It can decide to refer the matter back to the Cabinet for reconsideration. If this route is taken, the Commission will need to set out the nature of its concerns in writing, alongside any recommendations for the Cabinet to take account of in reconsidering the decision. And finally, it can decide to refer the Cabinet decision to the full County Council meeting on the 2nd of July, setting out the nature of its concerns in writing. The Council can then either decide it does not object to the Cabinet decision and no further action is necessary, in which case the decision takes effect on the 2nd of July, or that it objects to the decision and asks Cabinet to reconsider, giving its reasons for doing so. In these circumstances, the Cabinet will need to meet within 10 working days of the 2nd of July Council meeting to reconsider the decision, take a final decision and proceed to implement it from that day. It is important to note that full Council does not have the power to take the decision itself, unless the Cabinet has made a decision which is contrary to the policy framework or contrary to or not wholly consistent with the budget. It is the view of officers that this is not the case. If the Commission decides that a decision should be referred directly back to the Cabinet or up to full Council first, a written report setting out reasons for the referral will be required. Chair.
Thank you, Fiona. So we'll now move on to 2 on the protocol. So I'll start and then I'll hand over to Michael to see if he wants to add anything else. So this is just explaining our reasons for the call-in. So as stated within the call-in notice, we have submitted this call-in because we do not believe this decision has been thought through properly and appears to be very rushed. It had not been scrutinised, nor have any of the staff working groups had their voices heard. Holding this meeting will allow Scrutiny to properly debate the changes and allow staff working groups to speak. We are also concerned that the decision taken by the Cabinet has not taken into account the public sector equality duty. It is not clear and leaves the Chief Executive in a difficult position. A clear decision is needed by the administration regarding what flags can fly, when and where. It cannot be left to a weekly decision, nor can the staff be left without any clear direction. We feel this position has weakened the current positive position of our approved flag flying policy, which was agreed by all the previous political group leaders in the previous council. So I'll ask Mike to add anything to that.
Just to say I'm generally in agreement with that and endorse what's been said about, I think there was a lack of consult members before.
Okay, so has any committee members now, you've got an opportunity to raise any points of clarity on what I've said or what Michael said with the reasons for the call-in. Has anyone got anything they wish to raise at the moment? Okay, we move on to point 4 then. So chairs of the staff network groups have been invited to speak. So not all speakers, some speakers are present here and some will not be questioned by the scrutiny. They're just here to give their point of view. So we will not be able to scrutinise them, but we will be able to ask points of clarity. So we are joined today by a number of representatives of the staff working group, and I understand Victoria Vernon, the co-chair of the Disabled Workers Group, has been nominated to speak on behalf of that group, as well as the LGBTQ+ and the BAME network groups and core group members. So Victoria, would you like to come to the table and make your representations?
I'd like to start by saying thank you to all the members in this room for giving the staff networks an opportunity to speak at this meeting. The decision on the Council's flag flying protocol is something that continues to impact our members and the Council's workforce. Between the statement at Tuesday, 12th of June's Cabinet meeting and here now, we are thankful that our staff's voices can be heard. I want to start by addressing a few perspectives that have since emerged, and by doing so, hopefully re-emphasise our position in this discussion and to find common ground. We emphasise community, communication and support in the occasions we would like to mark through our flags, and we hope the Council would agree with this position. Our concern about which flies are being flown in the new protocol does not put us in opposition to the Armed Forces Day, Commonwealth Day and Armistice Day flags. In fact, as with any group, we have armed forces personnel in our communities. None of us are separate from each other. We believe that the flags that represent our staff networks also come under the British values, under respect and tolerance. There are LGBTQ plus people here in the county, disabled people, people of colour. We are all equally proud to be here in Leicestershire too. Please consider the message that has been sent to the Leicestershire people in these groups by underlining that the new protocol represents British values and what it means when other flags are not being flown. Those of us who have a protected characteristic are unfortunately well aware that law is not always on our side. Laws are hard-earned but can be reappealed. But this also does not address the fact that even though we now have laws designated to protect us, conflict in the workplace still occurs. According to the CIPD Good Work Index 2022, around 1 in 5 workers reporting a disability, equating to 17%, encountered conflict in the last 12 months compared to nearly 1 in 20 of those reporting no disability, which equates to 6%. More than double the proportion of gay, lesbian or bisexual workers reported in instance of conflict, equating to 50%, compared to 77% of heterosexual workers. Meanwhile, 1 in 8, which equates to 12% of non-white workers reported incidents of conflict compared to only 7% of white workers. Conflict increases work-related stress, burnout, and reduced productivity. But an environment of trust and understanding where action is taken and support is visible reduces the likelihood of these incidents. This is why we welcome the leader's offer to meet with us separately and urge all members to consider the impact of the workforce culture on staff. With these points underlined, we now encourage members of all parties to consider the following as the discussions continue. Our first request is for clarification on the efficiency of the new protocol. Considering the flags will not be used unless agreed by the leader, for example, the disability pride flag, which has not long been acquired, would this be considered a wasted resource? Could the cost of maintaining the previous protocol be made available? Secondly, the public sector equality duty requires decision makers to understand and take account of the consequences of their choices. Having due regard to the aim of eliminating conduct prohibited by the Act, advancing equalities of opportunity and fostering good relations, one of the Nolan principles under which all members are bound is openness. Holders of public office should act and take decisions in an open and transparent manner. Information should not be withheld from the public unless there are clear and lawful reasons for doing so. Could it please be addressed how, without prior consultation, the recent change to protocol satisfied both these requirements, and how the administration will communicate with staff and the public for future decisions like these? Thirdly, we know anecdotally that staff joined the council previously because of its welcoming culture. Unfortunately, we believe that taking away the flags threatens to put the future candidates off joining the council. Furthermore, as Gen Z fully enter the workforce, the scrutiny of an organisation's values increases. I use the example of LGBTQ plus Gen Z employees here. A 2024 survey from My G Work and Hired showed that 3/4 of LGBTQ plus job seekers said they would hesitate to join organisations where they felt they couldn't be them true selves. Fearing discrimination, bias, and limited career development opportunities. What is being done to maintain a welcoming culture for future employees? Finally, I would like to reiterate our request for an open dialogue with the administration. We are happy to meet with the leader and the cabinet to discuss further, but especially as things develop, there are more opportunities for us to learn from each other. We want to work with members and the administration to offer the best support for staff here at the council. If you are willing to listen, we are willing to share. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Victoria. Very well spoken. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak. I think it was important that you were here, so thank you very much. Does anyone have any points of clarity they don't ask from what Victoria said? Okay. So we'll now move on to item 5. So I'll draw attention to the comments received from the County Council regarding members' role as corporate parents, from County Council social workers, and complaints received from members of the public. So copies of the comments received have been circulated to all members and are now published on the council's website. Copies have already also been handed out today, and I propose that we take a 5-minute short adjournment to allow members an opportunity to read through these comments. So if no one's got them on their desk, then please speak to Democratic Services and we'll make sure you get a copy, but we'll just take a 5 minutes recess to enable you to read through those documentations. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Everyone's the committee and the leader and lead member for adults and communities have read the documentation. So we're moving on to point 6 on the paper. So as Scrutiny Commission Chair, I've invited the lead member for adults and communities to join us today, along with the lead member for children and families who was unable to attend as he's on holiday. Mr. Bone has joined us today, and I'll now invite him to speak regarding the Cabinet decision and the impact this might have on adult service users. So over to you, Mr. Bone.
Yes, well, I think the removal of these flags does not mean exclusion. The Union flag is the most inclusive flag you can get. We are inclusive, which is why we will fly the Union flag, which represents everyone in this county and country, regardless of sexuality, gender or race. I think it's that simple.
Okay, thank you. So I'll give members an opportunity to raise any questions or points of clarity with Mr. Bone. Anyone got any questions or comments? So just obviously from the Chris Pageant, who's an employee from Adult Social Care, who sent in the letter with over 100 signatures from social workers of Leicestershire. Have you spoken to them or met with them at all?
I haven't had the chance yet, but I'll make the effort to reach out after this.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from Mr. Bone at this point? No? Okay, so I'll now move on to point 8. So I'll invite the leader to speak and explain the Cabinet decision. Mr. Harrison, can you also respond to the points raised by the staff network group chairs, the council as a corporate parent, the county council social workers letters, and the comments that we received from the members of the public? So I'll hand over to you, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I'd like to start off with the key points. I think this is important. It's important to understand the importance of recognising our national and local identity, our heritage, culture, celebrating British values and civic pride. This new protocol allows us to all do this and recognise the importance of others who serve our communities across Leicestershire and beyond. I've agreed to meet with various staff network chairs, disabled workers group, LGBTQ+, BAME. They've accepted the invitation and I wait for them to sort of make contact to be able to deal with that and talk to them. What we've done is simplified and tides up previous policies whereby lots of confusion and flags were flown across the civic year. Having a simple policy and having only one Union flag, a county flag and St George's flag, and the Lord Lieutenant's emphasised on his commitment to unity and civic pride. The procedure to deal with requests to fly other flags regarding community events and celebration days still possibly delegated to Chief Executive in consultation with the Leader of the Council. This was given quite serious consideration. We thought about all the other points. I was comforted in the thought, knowing that we as an employer of this county and the employees are safeguarded by all manners of different laws and regulations. Nobody is ever subject to being of attack or abuse, because the laws are there to prevent that. There would never actually happen. And I would suggest anybody who ever felt, and we heard of enormous list of people who considered themselves and been abused, would notify their senior manager as soon as possible and formalise a proper complaint. So having said that, I think that the flags flying at the moment, and there's so many, there's about 40 odd or 50 different flags fly through the whole year. And it is sort of a little bit political as well, some of the flags that fly. And I think it's easy for us to gather around our Union flag and to listen carefully to people who have got concerns, and I'm willing to do that, and to try to help them and talk to them and reassure them above all things that I, as the leader, or any member of the cabinet, and I think I speak for every member of the council really, nobody would stand by and allow anybody to be abused, and would support and react straight away by talking to the director of that department or whatever. So nobody should feel intimidated. It was concerning to hear a list of numbers of people who feel intimidated, and that's shocking really, because I don't think that that's appropriate. And if that's already been going on before the flags come down, it just worries me that, you know, what sort of community have we got if we've got that, even with the flags not being affected. So I think what we've got is a good coherent plan. It's simple. We know what flags will fly above this building. It's not unusual. I can remember the times when all council and government buildings flew the Union flag. And I think it's an important point in our history and time now that we just revert back to that. And it's as simple as that, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Just a couple of points for me to start with, then I'll open up. Just, you mentioned that the previous flag flying policy that was agreed by the last council was confusing. What bit was confusing about it?
The number of flags, the way it just appeared. It was a simple agreement. I understand that, and it was by the three leaders, so that was perfectly fine. But times move on, and the view is that those sort of flags and flag flying here, there and everywhere isn't really necessary, that we sort of have our own flags to fly as a national flag. And so that was the reason behind it, the thought process.
So it wasn't confusion, it's just that you thought there was too many flags, is what you're saying?
Well, we're not confused. We can see flags and we understand it, but it's the amount of flags and what they represent and where we're really going with everything.
Okay. And just my second point was, you mentioned there that some of the flags are political.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Well, some of the organisations are political organisations, aren't they? That behind those flags that fly. That's quite normal. Everybody accepts that. They campaign, they work on behalf, so they're an organisation, and etc.
Are you able to mention what flags you think are political?
No, not really. Not at this stage. I haven't got all that documentation in front of me, but, you know, we only have to think of, say, even the Pride flag. Well, they're a political organisation of some substantial standing. And, you know, I think what I'm trying to say is it's far better we fly under our own flag, and that pulls people together regardless of backgrounds or whatever.
Mr. King, I think you were first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mr. Harrison, I'd like to ask you why was this considered to be an urgent matter that required an extraordinary meeting of the Cabinet to be held at such short notice? What was the rationale for you doing that, given that you got a Cabinet meeting only a few days after the one that you called to specifically consider this matter? And as I understand, it lasted less than 8 minutes, so there wasn't much discussion about any of the issues you've just talked about. So please, can you explain, A, why it was necessary to call an urgent meeting, and B, why there was minimal discussion about the issues that you've just mentioned? Thank you.
Simple. We felt it was appropriate.
I could just come back on that. So you just felt it was urgent because it was appropriate. There was no necessity, no urgent necessity that, you know, pressing demand, or was the demand coming from external to the council, from elsewhere, from external players?
No, we felt it was appropriate. We felt it was appropriate amongst ourselves to move at the pace we did. A decision was made and it was acted upon.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Powland, you're next.
Thank you very much. One of the questions I had has been asked. In terms of the flag policy, though, obviously the previous flag policy is, I don't think 6 months or maybe 6 months old, something in that order. You've explained sort of your reasons for wanting to simplify it, but can you explain, are there any particular flags from the old policy, the one we passed in January, that you particularly object to flying? Or because I don't think anyone, we talked about the Union flag, I don't think anyone would object to the Union flag, to the county flag, to the Cross of St George. I'd be amazed if anyone in this sort of disagrees with that. It's more, again, the question being why the urgency, because it was 3 working days between the emergency meeting and the scheduled meeting. Presumably the urgency, it was in order to because there was particular problems with the flags. So which flags? Because I have to say, to me as a councillor of 8 years, this does look like it's been brought in to avoid scrutiny. I hope that's not the case, but I can't see any other reason beyond that, unless there is a particular urgency because of particular flags that the old policy had that you disagree with.
Well, I'm very happy to say I have no particular flag that I disagree with. My son is a gay man living with a gay partner for 26 years. I suffer from dyslexia all throughout my life, so I have a disability. So I don't come before this meeting this afternoon and say this or that. There is just a lot of flags. There's just a lot of flags, and we decided as a team, as a group, that was appropriate action that we took. It's simplified everywhere. It does not disparage any of those people or who they are or what they are. It does not, and it's not meant to be disparaging to anybody. It is simply a policy was thought through by us. We thought it would needed to be appropriately dispatched. It was. It's as simple as that. We make decisions, you act upon them, and you deal with them.
Thank you for that explanation. Can I ask, was this a policy that you had in mind from the point you were first elected as an administration?
I think it was the opportunity of being in control and to be able to do things. We have thoughts, but we were never able to enact them and do anything. When there was an opportunity to do so, it was just so easy, and all of Cabinet was 100% behind it, so it wasn't a difficult decision.
Thank you. Just so I'm very clear on this point, did you have it in mind as an administration, the plan to bring in this new policy before the deadline for the scheduled Cabinet meeting?
Well, we thought about before the schedule. Yes, of course we did.
Okay, in that case, can I ask why it wasn't included in the scheduled Cabinet meeting?
Why it wasn't discovered? No, we debated it, discussed it, decided we'd take it to Cabinet. We then decided that we could do what we did by an earlier Cabinet meeting specifically for that. We enacted it. We did it. Simple as that. There was no great brain thinking about it. It was a decision made. It was unanimous. It was acted upon quickly. That was fine.
Okay, any other comments? Do you want to go, Michael?
So, Mr. Harrison, obviously you've taken on an incredibly responsible job as leader of Leicestershire County Council, and you have some really serious issues and responsibilities that affect the daily lives of people in Leicestershire that you're responsible for, in terms of elderly and disabled people's social care, special education needs, public transport, issues to deal with flooding, issues to do with the state of roads and pavements, issues which affect lots of people's everyday lives. But was it really your judgment that the one issue that was so important that justified a special Cabinet meeting was the flying of flags? Isn't there far more important issues which affect the daily lives of people in Leicestershire that should have been the subject for those Cabinet meetings rather than that issue, which really seemed to be just about creating a battle over symbols?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. That one can be dealt with appropriately and very quickly. So that's not money. That's not weeks or days or months of negotiating or planning. It was an easy to deal with. So it wasn't something that we're leaving other things in isolation. It wasn't that we're neglecting the other things that you've suggested, because we're working hard in all of those directions. But that was one thing that was very easy, that we all felt united on, that we could deal with appropriately and quickly. It's as simple as that. It wasn't no great thought process, no great problems. It was quite easy to deal with and dispatch, and we did appropriately.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Chair. I spent over a decade serving Late Majesty as part of the Armed Forces, and during that time I was very proud to work alongside people of different races, different religions. Fortunately, when I first joined the Air Force, if you were openly homosexual, you were barred from joining service, and if you were discovered during that period as well, you were actively dismissed from service. Now, people's views change over time, and thankfully the legislation did as well, and my own views changed as well, because you were indoctrinated into a system. And when that decision was reversed and people started to work openly as homosexual or whatever, the culture didn't change. So I find myself actually in agreement with you, because the Union flag is inclusive. As a serviceman, it very much was the one flag. We didn't have lots of different flags. We had the Union flag because it represents every single person in this room. The issue with the more and more diverse flags going out is it actually sometimes can create more problems than it solves. And I always go along the lines of, there is more that unites us than divides us. So I do support the decision for one Union flag and the county flag and the St George's flag. Now, yesterday, I was very proud as an ex-serviceman to attend the flag raising ceremony in the quadrangle. As an ex-serviceman, it means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to the staffing groups in this building that obviously are ex-service as well. Mm. But by their very nature, flags are symbolic, and each flag, no matter what it is, means something to somebody else. And I can understand and appreciate that, because that flag yesterday meant a lot to me. But I don't see how you can almost use a pick and mix of the ones that you want and the ones that you don't. I would be much happier with a policy that we flew the Union flag and that be the end of it. To fly one set of flags, and I am not saying don't fly the Armed Forces flags, I would be personally offended if you did. But what I am saying is that we seem to be, or you as leadership seem to be choosing the ones that you want, the ones that are publicly acceptable or popular, shall we say. And I think that's wrong. So I would support a one flag, be it the Union County and the St George's on the front. I've got no issue with that whatsoever. But I do think you need to have the courage as leader to say none or all. Thank you.
Any other comments from anybody? Mr. Bond? Yeah, we'll come to that bit later when we have a debate. These are questions to the leader. Yeah, Mr. King.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, sorry. Got a further point I'd like to put to you, Mr. Harrison, based on some of your responses and what I've heard since. So, so what you've said, and I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there was no particular pressing issue for you to make this change, but you felt like that you should do it, and that you can't think of any flags that are political. You couldn't think of any that were, but you think that it needed simplifying. And you've also stated that you're going to be meeting with the staff groups. So if there was no particular urgency or requirement to get this done, there was no pressing problem, which you've outlined, don't you think it would have been sensible and pragmatic to have met with the various groups across the county council internally, given that maintaining staff morale is very, very important for efficient working of the council, and that efficiency is under a lot of pressure? So as the leader of the council, don't you think you ought to have met with them beforehand, given though there was no pressing need for you to make this change, as you've already said, to meet with the staff groups before you and your cabinet colleagues considered this matter and made your streamlining of this protocol? I can't quite understand why you didn't do that. Why now, after the event, you're having to go and have discussions with staff groups who obviously we've already heard and we've seen in documentation that's been sent, they're not entirely happy with what you've decided to do. So given that you're the political head of the county council, don't you think you ought to have done that to begin with rather than doing it afterwards, given what you've already said, there was no pressing need, no matter of urgency, despite the fact you called an urgent cabinet meeting to consider it for all of, well, it was less than 8 minutes, but more than 6, I believe. So I don't want to get it down to the second, but I probably could. So I'm just wondering what your take is on that. Because that's, thank you, Chair.
Well, Madam Chairman, yes, it's quite a rambling, trying to understand where you're going with it all. The decision was made lawfully and legally by members of the cabinet that would be a decision we'd go forward with. Simple as that. There was no great mystery. We didn't have to go out sampling views and opinions. It was a decision lawfully and correctly made and then delivered at cabinet. What has really concerned me as leader of this council is to listen to a member of the staff relate various serious actions against members of staff. I'm utterly shocked and I'm worried, because that's nothing. That was happening before flags, nothing to do with flag decision. That's happened and I'm concerned, and I welcome the opportunity to talk to them and understand and see how I can try and offer support or help, and if necessary, the appropriate bodies of people involved to try to support and help, because that's not what I was hoping to achieve. That's already happened. It's shocking. You know, we're altering flags and creating policies for flags that in the main should not physically affect people emotionally to such an extent. And you've got to remember also, and it's not trying to make a jive or a quick point, but 90% of our staff don't even work here. Walk through this building as I do regular 5 days a week, and this place isn't bulging with staff like it did many years ago. So I hope the effect of what we're doing isn't going to disturb staff to the scale that it's been suggested it might happen, and I most sincerely hope it doesn't. But what has concerned me this afternoon is points of staff being abused by other people. I'm shocked and horrified to hear that, and I will make contact as quickly as possible and see how I might be able to intervene and help. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was just basically following on from my ramble as such. Does the leader think it's okay to select certain groups but not have others represented? Or, like me, would you be in favour of just one flag? Thank you.
We're in favour of the Union flag, our county flag that we proudly fly, and obviously St George's flag when appropriate. The Lord Lieutenant, when he's on official business, he's representing King Charles III, our Majesty the King, so we fly his flag. And we're quite happy with that. We think we cover most of our civic responsibilities correctly to enthuse and help people. And I don't think we need any more than that, but I'm grateful for the question. Thank you.
Thanks for that, and totally in agreement with you. And that's exactly what it lays out on the paper for the front 3 flags. I'm specifically asking about the quadrangle. is it fair to marginalise some groups as opposed to other groups? Regardless of what the flag is, doesn't matter. The flag could be bottle of water and a computer flag. It doesn't matter. But you are saying it's okay to fly certain flags there, but not others. Surely we should just have the Union flag.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Flying the Union flag there would be wonderful. Yes, I've not got a problem with that. Thank you.
But that's not what the cabinet decision made, was it?
Yes, I think our intention would be to fly it, because normally we'd have flag raising there and other events. So why shouldn't we? I've just walked across and looked at the flag today and thought, yeah.
I'll just remind you of what you agreed at cabinet. So this is the decision that we're making, that the Union flag and the county flag to fly permanently from 2 of the 3 flag poles at the front of County Hall. That was already in place, so there's no change from the previous policy to your policy. That was what was in the previous policy. The 3rd pole to fly the St George's flag or the Lord Lieutenant's flag when he's present at County Hall. That was in the previous flag flying policy, so that's the same with you. It's your B3 point that the 4th pole within the quadrangle at County Hall be utilised to mark events such as Armed Forces Day, Commonwealth Day and Armistice Day. We don't actually fly a flag for Armistice Day, it's wreath laying in the quadrangle. So you, as Mr Smith has pointed out, within your cabinet decision, you have specifically said that you will fly the Armed Forces Day flag and the Commonwealth Day flag. So I think that's the point Mr Smith is trying to make, that you've picked out just those 2 flags within your cabinet decision and not any of the others. So I think that's the point Mr Smith is trying to make, is why you've picked some flags over the others. So that was in your cabinet decision. So can you answer that, which I think is what Mr Smith was trying to explain.
If Mr Smith thought it appropriate, just do a note to Chief Executive. He'll bring it to me, we'll discuss it, and maybe we'll have our Union flag flying there, because I would not object to that, sir.
So that could be a recommendation that comes from the Scrutiny Commission then, if that's what we want.
To the Chief Executive.
Well, no, this would be our
oh, yes.
This would come back to Cabinet for you to discuss as a Cabinet, because you sort of mentioned beginning that the previous flag flying policy was confusing. I think the decision you've made is quite confusing because it's very unclear, because as I've just said on that, your decision, B3, was the 4th pole to the quadrangle to be used for such events as Armed Forces Day, Commonwealth Day and Armistice Day. And then point C on your decision, the decision relates to other requests to fly flags in relation to community events and celebration days to be delegated to the Chief Executive following consultation with the leader. So I don't see the point of that last bit. For me, the Cabinet and you as the leader need to make a direct decision about what flags you're going to fly, when and where. So I think for me, that is what's confusing about the decision you made. You've made it very unclear. So we can't have this delegated to the Chief Exec and the leader, because at the end of the day, the leader makes the decision at this council. So it's for you to make a decision, not to delegate it to someone else. That's what you're elected to do, is to make a decision. So please let me just finish. So I think my view is that I got very confused by this Cabinet decision because it's very unclear. So I think you need to make a really clear decision about what flags you're going to fly where.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You wanted to speak and now you don't?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. Anybody's contribution is welcomed. Mr Smith has suggested the Union flag would be appropriate there, and I totally agree with that. So we're happy to try to move that forward. Thank you.
The point of scrutiny is to enable the administration to make better decisions and better policies. So that's the whole point of being here. So that's good that you're listening.
Indeed.
Is there any other, Mr. Poland?
Oh, thank you. I think I'm right in saying myself and the leader were elected for the first time on the same day back in 2017.
Pardon?
I think I'm right in saying myself and the leader were elected on the same day back in 2017.
Indeed.
And I've had the honour, and I do mean that, of serving with you for most of that time. We've served on a number of committees together, and certainly I would hope you would share my view of the importance of scrutiny in the democratic process. I've on many occasions benefited from the things that you've fed into items and learnt from, and that in turn has helped me ask questions and I hope made better policy as a result of that. The thing that concerns me most about this is the lack of scrutiny, to be quite honest with you, before this process got to there. It can't help but get to the impression that this was maybe brought to an emergency meeting in order to avoid scrutiny, which that troubles me rather than the decision itself so much. It's that. So can I ask the lead, do you agree with me that scrutiny is an important part of the democratic process? Was any consideration whatsoever given to allowing scrutiny to take place over this policy? This was the very first decision of the new administration. Can the leader please commit to not denying scrutiny for future decisions?
Happy to answer. I reminded all my colleagues that this would automatically be called in by scrutiny. Fully expected it. I'd be shocked if it hadn't been. I'd have been amazed, because I know scrutiny is important, and this was something that would inevitably probably be called in. That's fine, yeah, and I support scrutiny, of course I do.
Can I just follow up on that? So why did you do what you did then? If you knew it was going to be called in, why didn't you put it on the forward programme and let it come to scrutiny first?
No, because we made a decision, and I reminded my colleagues that there was a potential for it to be called in, and that's if you wished and your wish came true and it was called in, and that was it, and we accepted.
Mr. King.
Mr. Harrison, first of all, there is no automatic call-in to scrutiny. You, as an experienced member of this council, know that with the greatest respect. There is no automatic process.
I didn't say that.
You did. You said automatic.
Yeah, all right, but I assumed that that's what they'd want to do. It's not allegedly.
Hang on.
Yeah.
So I'm asking the questions. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. So you just stated it was an automatic call-in, and maybe you mischose your words. So let's just run through this a little bit. So far you've said there was no problems with flag waving, there was no matter of urgency, but you wanted to make a change because you wanted to simplify the process. So what you've done, there was a very clearly laid out protocol that then said which flags fly, and as the Scrutiny Commissioner has outlined, and as we all know, the 3 flagpoles at the front of the building, there's been no change to what your simplified, streamlined policy proposes. It's virtually the same. The only change is in the quadrangle. And in the quadrangle, the existing protocol that was only laid out a few months ago by cross-party agreement and agreed with the staffing groups, laid out a very clear framework as to what would be, fly where, etc. I have no particular issue with you wishing to change that. I think, that at the end of the day, you're the administration if you want to do that. But what I do have a problem with is you calling an urgent meeting for no apparent need whatsoever, and a waste of resources. And we having to then call this into scrutiny because you wouldn't follow the process to begin with. Don't you think, with the metaphorical PhD in hindsight, that you should have not done that, and you should have gone through the proper process, which is put it on the forward plan, allow the matter to be scrutinised, allow for interested groups, whether that's staff groups, whether that's external groups, to then feed into that process, rather than you and your party colleagues making a behind closed doors decision to, well, that's what must have happened, a behind closed doors decision to make this change for a matter that you've already stated wasn't particularly urgent or pressing. So I'm just wondering, don't you think you should have gone through the correct process rather than going through this kind of something which really isn't a matter of it's not a matter for urgent cabinet. I still don't understand why you did that. So I'm just wondering whether you can, one more time, just explain why it was necessary to have an urgent cabinet meeting This isn't, you've already stated it wasn't an urgent matter, it wasn't problematic, so why was it necessary to have an urgent cabinet meeting? Thank you, Chair.
Well, it's very simple, Madam Chairman. We deemed it appropriate to fly only those flags that we've mentioned and not all of the other flags, 50 or 45, 52 of them, whatever it is. That was a decision made. It was as simple as that. We understood what we're doing, and when it comes to contemplation, you don't really sit in public, do you, talking as a group so everybody can listen to you and decide of your views and opinions. We behaved in no other different fashion to your group or to this group or any other group in this council. We sat, we thought about it, there was a decision made, we enacted it. It's as simple as that, and this is where we are today.
Is there any more questions for the leader at this point from members? No, thank you very much for answering them. So we'll move on to 10. So now the committee can debate the call-ins and information provided by the leader and the lead member for adults. So Mr. Piper, I think you indicated that you had something to say.
Thank you, Chair. Some of us Reform councillors who are most against the flags are the gay Reform councillors. It's not about discrimination. Quite the converse. It's by identifying different groups, we're putting them into little boxes, and that's called division. At Reform UK, we strive to unite everyone in the country rather than dividing people into smaller and smaller groups. Remember the expression, divide and conquer. We are all people. We are all residents of Leicestershire, and we are all trying to do the best for the people of Leicestershire. We respect each person for who and what they are. We believe that the right person for the job should get the job. What sexuality, gender, colour of eyes are immaterial. It's the best person for the job. Hiring the best person for the job will make all of our lives easier and provide better service for the public. In the 60s, 70s, and to some extent in the 80s, the gay community needed support, such as gay pride marches. They were more critical then. There was much more name calling. Do you remember the pretty policemen in nightclubs and so on and so forth? One night I ended up in hospital because a few guys thought it would be fun to go and beat up a few people in the gay bar. Today, to a very large extent, there's a status quo. Nobody cares. Carrying on and extending gay pride march into a month is only going to cause more of a backlash. Maybe we ought to celebrate Straight Month. Without them, none of us would exist. And to be honest, I'm more frightened about the knives and attacks from the muggings and the e-scooters on the footpaths and pedestrian streets than I am worried about what flag is flying from County Hall. And I am more than sorry to say that I read in one of these comments in the 5-minute break, the council is rife with homophobia and bigotry. I do not recognise that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So any more comments from Dr. Hill?
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at the top of the paper we're given on the calling protocol. The focus of the meeting is whether the reasons set out are sufficient to ask for the decision to be reconsidered. There's two things I've underlined here: the public sector equality duty and staff, the impact on staff culture. And I think personally, those are good enough reasons for us to ask for the decision to be reconsidered. Especially as it's the internal quadrangle, which affects the staff, and it's what they see. It's the message we're sending to staff. The public face, that isn't really changing, is it? It's what the staff feel and how they feel, and how we as corporately are looking to promote within our staff the public sector equality duty. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments from Mr. David?
Thank you, Chair. Don't disagree with what Dr. Hill has just said. What I was concerned about with this decision wasn't necessarily the detail of the decision, but was more about why it was necessary to have an urgent cabinet meeting. And I've asked the leader several times earlier on, and he's been evasive about giving a clear answer as to why it was necessary to have an urgent meeting of the county council cabinet. I still haven't got a clue why it was necessary for him and his cabinet to do that. He's already stated there wasn't any great problem with flag waving. There wasn't any great, urgent demand that had been placed on them. It's just he and the reform group felt like doing it. And therefore, I'd go as far, Chair, to say I think an abusive process has taken place here, Chair, at the council. That's a very serious thing to say, but I do think that's what's happened. I don't think there was any requirement at all for it to be an urgent meeting of cabinet. It could have been properly gone through with the staff, gone through with interested parties, whether they, so we could have, taken all views on board. And yes, there are some people who feel very passionately about these things and other people who feel less passionately about those things. And then it could have avoided all this unnecessary waste of resources, about time and resource in, you having an urgent cabinet meeting, us having to call it in, and then us now have to have this meeting to go through it, and then to, consider sending it back. Utter waste of everyone's time, quite frankly. And you said earlier on, Mr. Harrison, that you wanted to streamline things and make it simpler. In my mind, all you've done is made it incredibly more complicated and over convoluted the decision making to a degree that was completely unnecessary. So I think, Chair, I'm quite happy to support this going back to Cabinet for them to review. But I do think we need to, I think the way this has been come about is wholly wrong. It should not have happened like this. I know they can do it like this, but it is not the right sort of item to be brought forward as an urgent matter to Cabinet. Far from it. And I think maybe this is something that needs to be looked at by the Corporate Governance Committee of the Council, to look at Constitution Committee as to what the mechanisms are or what the issues are that trigger an urgent cabinet meeting, because waving flags in the quadrangle is not one of them in my book. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Poland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think given the discussion that's gone on, the leader's already committed to talking to staff groups. So to make that meaningful, I think it's probably useful if it does go back to Cabinet. Obviously, presumably that conversation will go on before Cabinet, so it sort of feeds into the process. In terms of, I understand one of the sort of functions that we have today is also to make recommendations to Cabinet, and on that basis, looking on page 11 of our agenda, item 4, protocol for flying flags at County Hall. The current, there's number 4, item 4A, the current flag protocol be revoked. Okay, that's your decision, fine. In terms of B, no problem at all with 1 or 2, which is the Union flag, county flag, St George's flag, or the lieutenant's flag when in an official capacity. But in terms of item 4B.3, that currently reads the 4th pole within the quadrangle at County Hall will be utilised to mark events such as Armed Forces Day, Commonwealth Day and Armistice Day. I think it would be useful, given the comments from Mr Smith that the leaders said he will consider, if we can firm that up a little bit. So if that instead says specific events that will be considered, so not such as, specific events that everyone can see and everyone can understand. And in terms of item 4.C, the decisions in relation to all of the requests to fly flags be considered by the chief executive and the leader. Again, no problem with that in principle, but I think that they really do have to stress these are very exceptional circumstances. So these wouldn't be something I would expect to see even yearly. This would be in very exceptional circumstances that we have seen maybe a handful of times this century. But just if we can make that clear, I think that those would be recommendations I would suggest.
Thank you. I'm happy to second those, just to tighten up a little bit what you said. So my recommendations, pretty much what you said, Mr. Poland, but 4A, yeah, I'm happy, you know, if that's what the administration want to do, revoke the previous flag flying protocol, that's absolutely within their prerogative to do it. So no issues with that. 4B little 1, that's what was already in place. 4B2, that was what was already in place. So I don't have an issue with that. It's that the 4B little 3 that I think gives it much too grey an area. So I think that should be referred back to Cabinet, and that 4B little 3 should specifically say, out of these flag flying protocol that we already got, which flags out of this protocol that you will fly on the 4th pole in the quadrangle, and you to specifically say what flags you're going to fly there, rather than just saying such as. It needs to be definite out of the current list of national celebration days, which flags you're going to fly on the 4th pole in the quadrangle. It needs to be really, really clear, so there's no grey areas. And 4C should be just say in exceptional circumstances that arise due to whatever national global situations arrive, that delegated to chief exec and leader. That shouldn't be in relation to community events and celebration days. That should be by exceptions only. So just to sort of second, but just to make it a little bit stronger, that would be my recommendation for us to go to Cabinet. And I'll agree with you. I would hope that you would definitely speak to all the staffing groups before your next Cabinet, and also picking up those points of what Dr. Hill said, giving due regard to that. And also, as former league member for Children and Families, I am very strong on my corporate parenting, as we all are corporate parents of this council. And I think you need to give due regard to our children in care and all those children that we represent within Leicestershire. So I'd like to see some consideration of those points as well before you make your decision again at Cabinet. So happy to second, or whether James wants to second my tightened up. Yeah, James happy to second up my slightly tighter what we should recommendations go back to Cabinet. Has anyone else got any other comments to make before we go to a vote? Are you happy with those recommendations? You got them quite clearly, yeah? Moved by me and seconded by Mr. Poland. So all in favour that we return this to Cabinet with those recommendations from the Scrutiny Commission for them to consider and re-look at their decision that they made previously. All in favour? Anyone against? You can't vote, Mr. Bone. Is that carried? That's carried. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Harrison, Mr. Bone, for attending, and thank you all for everyone for their attendance today. Thank you.